Welcome to the Starry-Eyed podcast. My name is Brendan.
And I'm Jen. On this show, we talk about all things Williams syndrome. We're excited to share our community with you. Thanks for being here.
We can do an intro, just you and me. Jen had to go. So,
Yep.
Yeah. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, brother.
Show off the cool T-shirt one more time. We won't talk about it in depth because we have a huge show today. But the House Guitars,
Rochester, New York. Please go check it out. Yes.
Cool. It's just a cool T-shirt. One thing, I think we may have talked about it last week. I wanted to point out, because it came up a couple times. I attended the Kansas City walk this past weekend, and people were talking about Buffalo and the convention next year. And they were like, well, we've never seen Niagara Falls. Maybe we'll stay longer, or maybe we'll go early. And I think we mentioned it before, but the weekend before the convention next year in 2026 is, of course, the 4th of July. And chances are they're going to have fireworks going off over Niagara Falls, which would be pretty darn cool. If you want to do it on the other side, the weekend after our convention.
East of Buffalo.
And yep. I'm assuming it's more than just wings.
It's a foodie's paradise. Yeah. I actually took a look at the website and I was like, oh, snap.
Oh, there you go. So go to, I think it's visitbuffaloniagara.com, and you can find it.
I actually have some links that I can send to you through my travel folder on my favorites, so I'll send them to you.
Very cool. Very cool. Today we have just an unbelievable, my brain is absolutely on fire right now.
Yeah.
With everything. We have, for the third straight year, our school kickoff episode with Robin Pegg, and boy, this one was just really, really good.
It was so good. So much great, powerful information.
Yeah. So no reason to listen to Brendan and I anymore. Let's just jump right to it. Let's just get in with
Let's go. All
right. Boom.
Bam.
Hi, I'm Morgan Jane Starkman from Inner Sense Organic Beauty, and I'm so excited to share something that I love, our Hair Renew Scalp Hair Bath and Soothing Conditioner. Soothes my hair and soothes my scalp irritation. These products leave my scalp feeling truly calm, and they make me feel confident and cared for, and I think you'll love them too. Let's take care of our scalp and hair together. Try them today and save 15% on your first purchase with my code Morgan15 at InnerSenseBeauty.com.
Hi, Robin. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Brendan?
Doing well. So for those who don't know, Robin has appeared on episode 7 and episode 40 of the podcast. So let's welcome back Robin. Clap, clap, clap.
Thank you.
So for those who might not know who you are, like the new people, why don't you take a second to introduce yourself?
Yeah, just real briefly. My name is Dr. Robin Pegg. I am the education consultant for the Williams Syndrome Association. So what that means is it's kind of my job to curate the educational resources that we put out as an organization, and work with other experts that we have to make sure that those things that we are putting out for families and educators and other teams to use are current and relevant. We have lots of people on the team. We have Dr. Michelle Self, who also serves as an education consultant. We have Drs. Bonnie Kine-Tasman and Marissa Fisher, who are behavioral consultants or behavioral specialists. We have, many, many people that participate in this work. I lean very heavily on Dr. Carolyn Mervis and her research that she puts out as a basis for the work that we do. And there's an entire team that the WSA has behind the scenes that helps produce all of the materials.
Yeah, you are one of our most favorite people to have on. And it's like every time we think about coming back to school, like it's a reminder that you are such an incredible resource for our community. And like you said, the team of people that are working behind you are just doing like so many amazing, wonderful things to help our learners. So there's a lot to unpack here. So as we mentioned, we've had you on before a couple of times. Did you say episode 7 and 40?
Yes, I did.
So there's lots of good nuggets there, and I always encourage people to like go back and listen to those with you, because there might be something that you've said 10 times and all of a sudden the 11th time you go, oh yeah, like I need to work on that. But like where are you thinking we should begin this year as people are thinking about like getting back to school with their kiddos and what that means if you're a Williams syndrome learner?
Well, we've spent a lot of time kind of talking about the educational profile. You can find that on the website. We've spent some time talking about prompting and things like that. You can also find that information on the website. I think what I'd really like to talk about today, partly because there's some trends going on in education regarding IEPs and regarding progress. And I've had a lot of conversations recently with families that are maybe a little frustrated, and maybe they're not sure, what they can do about it or how much power they have, with the school. So I wanted to kind of like turn back the clock a little bit. Back in 2018 at the convention, I gave a presentation alongside a couple of parents, and we went through what parental input looks like into an IEP and how powerful that is. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today. And coupled in there is a conversation about goal writing, because I've had several parents, and it's come up in conversations in the last couple of weeks actually, that have been pretty frustrated because they feel like their kids they kind of have the same goals over and over and over again, and they're worried about progress. So if we can talk about that today, I'd like to do that.
Yeah, I think so. I think that would be great. We actually had surveyed some community members and goal writing did come up. So I think that this is perfect, that we kind of start. Do we start from the beginning or start from 28?
Yeah. So I kind of have some of the slides. We're gonna skip around a little bit today from that presentation back in 2018, because some stuff we don't need to talk about here. Okay, so this is from rightslaw.com, and it talks about adding parent input into the IEP. And I think the biggest thing that I want to let parents know is, informally, you won't find it anywhere in writing, but really the idea is that parents are supposed to have 51% of the vote at an IEP. Okay. The idea that you sit down in an IEP and people say, oh, we don't do that here, or that's not how it works. That's not how it works. So what we need to talk about is what your power, what your role is as a parent. And this is right out of the commentary on the federal regs. It says that certain provisions are important to encourage parent participation in the IEP process, which is an important safeguard for ensuring a free and appropriate public education under the Act. So that's under IDEA. And on the same page, it also says parents are free to provide input into their child's IEP through a written report if they so choose. So every single parent that I talk to or work with through the Williams Syndrome Association, I try to let those families know that you should always, always, always submit a written report to the IEP. So what that means is send a letter. You want to send a letter that says, this is what I think. These are the things I'm concerned about. This is what I'd like to see. And I always love those letters to start with, here are our aspirations. This is our vision for our child when they're 25 years old.
Yes.
And I don't know, Brendan, if I can kind of pick on you a little bit.
Of course.
Knowing your mom, I think she did some of this in some of your meetings, but if every single meeting that ever happened in your school started out with, here's how we see Brendan when he's 25, what do you think that would have done for your education?
what do I think? I mean, it changed a lot, you know. My goals back then are so different than they are now, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with like music and stuff, you know, back then, you know, people said musically that I wasn't good enough, wouldn't amount to anything in the music industry, so on and so forth, because I had such a strong dream to like, strong, my goal was like to prove everybody wrong, which
Mm-hmm.
move forward, you know, I did. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Well, and I think, and that's the thing. It's like, I want families to start with what the aspiration is. I mean, what do the kids want to do? I mean, and it could be anything from being a mascot for a Big Ten team to running your own pizza place to, I don't know, owning a garbage company. I don't care. Whatever it is, that somebody might want to do, let them do it.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if this is kind of the same thing. So it's interesting. The way that I do it for Stella is every year at the start of the school year, I update like my vision statement, and I kind of have this like one sheeter that I use to talk with new teachers. Stella's in high school, if you can believe it. New teachers who haven't worked with her about the type of learner that she is, what her strengths are, what her interests are. And like you said, that vision statement for her of what our family hopes for her to achieve. And I think that that is so important, like especially what I see in special education is there is a wide range of learners and there is a wide range of how do I put this? What families expect of those learners. And
Yep.
so like right out of the gate, like I want my team to know that like my learner, I have big aspirations for her and I expect them to give her the tools that she needs to be successful in that. And I totally think it sets the tone of the year off, to a good level. Like I said, it can be updated. I don't know if we have an example of one, or I could give one, but I just have like a one sheet overview, like I mentioned. But you're thinking about also putting it in the IEP.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And so this is what's really important. That little section in the IEP that says parental input should never just be a sentence or two. It should always be everything that's in the letter that you attach or that you send via email, and send it 24 to 48 hours ahead of your IEP, or even a week ahead if you have it done, and you make a note in your email when you send it that says, please attach my parental input in its entirety to the IEP.
Yeah.
And you can also attach alongside of that the ed profile from the Williams Syndrome Association website. You can attach on to that the prompting hierarchy if that's appropriate. You can attach any research articles from Dr. Mervis. You can attach whatever you want. I mean, if it's 50 pages of stuff that you want attached, attach it, because here's what happens if you attach it to the IEP. Then every single person who works with your child is responsible to read all of that stuff.
Oh, how did I not know this? Did I know this?
Well, I'm sure we talked about it at some point, but
Yeah, see,
it could be the 11th time. We're waiting for the 11th time. That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely have, like I said, I've included it before, like it just as part of our start of the year activities, but I don't know, I've never put it in the IEP itself. So I need to do that.
Yeah, it's always important to attach it to the IEP, because then it has power. Then it becomes part of the document. And so what happens is they make a note in there and they put in your parental input, they put in your vision statement. And I just want to, put a plug out there too. Dr. Michelle South and Lisa Portune in the past, there's been a couple of other speakers, but Michelle, I know, does a phenomenal job at the conventions of teaching parents how to create this vision statement. And, that is something that I think, every parent should do a little one pager. Like, here's how I see my kiddo. And I love what you said, Jen, because setting the pace for that meeting, again, that's that 51% of the vote. It's your child. It's your child's meeting. You're in control, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I want them to know, like I expect this girl to graduate like with a diploma. Wants to be she says she wants to be an entomologist. So I'm like, when she comes into science class, right? Like we're taking this seriously. Like I understand that it has to be accommodated and modified, but that's not always the case for learners that have come before her, right? Some of them go, oh, here's another kid with a disability, and I'll just do what I've always done with them. And that does not work in the case of Stella's learning profile for sure.
Nope, it doesn't. Joel, would you mind skipping us ahead to slide number 9, please? Keep going. All right, here we go. So this is the student profile page of an IEP. It looks a little different from state to state, but somewhere in this section, you should see a spot that says parent input and concerns. So that is where your parent input is inserted. So they can, different states do it differently. They might copy and paste everything that's in your letter into this spot, or they might say, please see attached, and then attach it, and it goes in as an attachment at the end of the IEP. What should never happen, and if it does, please correct it, is where they say, oh, I got your summary or I got your document. So I just made a little summary and I put it in here, and they insert 2 sentences. Mm-hmm. And that's where you say to them, thank you for, I appreciate your efforts, but I need my parent input to be included in its entirety. That's why it's really important that when you send it in, you go ahead and just say that from the get-go, so it saves all the trouble later. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, can I ask a random question? Like how many, I know you see a lot of IEPs, how many IEPs are missing parental input?
Probably 75%.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
Or it's in there, but what it says is that it'll say something to the effect of parent did not provide any concerns. And that's all it says. So so it's really important. And Joel, will you roll to slide 10, please? Thank you. So on this slide, we talk about, why parent input was so important and why it's included as a section in the IEP. And it's because Congress, at the time that IDEA was reauthorized, wanted to strengthen the role of parents and ensure that parents have meaningful opportunities to participate in the education of their children, and that any district policy about barring parent IEP attachments is not consistent with the spirit or the letter of the law. So if you were ever told that you cannot attach things to the IEP, that's baloney. Okay? So FYI. All right, we're going to skip a little bit more here. And we're going to pop down to, let me pop you all the way down to.
So for those who might be listening, Robin has some slides that she's showing us. So if you've made it this far and you haven't figured that out, you can stop and go on YouTube and see what she's sharing with us.
Yes, I apologize.
Yeah.
All right. So the next thing that I wanted to kind of talk about, if you don't mind, Joel, popping to slide number 13. So on this slide, what we're talking about is the present level of academic achievement and functional performance, or something we affectionately call the PLAF page. And this is where all the data should be about your child. And here's the thing that's really important. Usually this section is, they're talking about reading and they talk about math and they talk about each different section of the IEP, whether it's OT or speech or whatever it is. This is the most important piece, is everything that is attached. And it's wonderful to have those sentences that start out with, Stella is the cutest thing ever. And she has all these sweet friends, and she's so kind and she's so loving. And that's wonderful. But then the other thing that we have to have is we have to have the data. Mm-hmm. So, and it needs to be concrete data. So what's really important here is that for every single section in here, there should be some hard data that you can count. And then the other thing that you want is the same data from year to year. So if 1 year they give your child the Kaufman assessment of academic achievement, So, or the if they give them the Kaufman or the KTEA, the next year they need to give the Kaufman again. So that, because otherwise what happens is you'll sometimes see where there are multiple different tests or multiple different assessments being used, something different every single year. And then we can't compare apples to apples to get a really good idea of where your child is. The other thing that will also happen is they'll use metrics like DIBELS or M-class or STAR testing or IXL data or something like that, which uses different types of metrics that aren't necessarily a grade level metric. And I've found over the years that oftentimes the easiest thing for parents to understand is grade level. So if my child's in 6th grade and they're reading at a 2nd grade level, I know they're 4 years behind. Okay.
Yeah.
So what might be really important for you as a parent, and you can put this up in your parent concerns, is how do I know where my child is? And then you ask that IEP team put all of its data in grade levels so that you can see how your child stacks up against what's going on in their grade level. Okay.
Yeah. I always find data very confusing. I think not only the way that they get data, but the way that they ask to get data or say that they're going to get data, and then, like you said, the results afterwards. Like, this is an area that gives me a lot of anxiety because I'm like, I don't know, I feel like it's like hubbub. Like, I just don't even, I'm like, I don't know what any of this means. So I'm nervous about it. So I hope you're going to show us how to write.
Yeah. So one of the things that I really like families to do is to keep track of the data. You know, get yourself a spreadsheet, get yourself a chart. Just, I don't care if it's just a piece of graph paper, whatever it is, and grade by grade, track it so that you can see across years how your child is doing. Okay. Because here's what often happens for me, invariably, about this time of the year, and well, pretty much all year long, at least 3 or 4 times a month, I am contacted by a family whose child is in 4th, 5th, or 6th grade, and they got an assessment from the school that says that their child is reading at a 1st grade level. And my question is, I don't know, you guys can tell me if I'm being unreasonable, but my question is, how did we get so far down the road and the child hasn't made any progress?
Right.
And why didn't anyone sound the alarm? And here's what we know from the research, from Dr. Mervis's research. As far as what Dr. Mervis will share is almost every single child with Williams syndrome should be able to learn to read to some extent.
Yeah.
So given that, why do we have a child that's 4 to 5 grade levels behind?
Because parents don't understand this, and neither do the people that are implementing the data. Like, nobody understands it. It's so complicated.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be. And that's why I'm saying, if we can, as families, you know, sort of start to keep track of that data, that's better. Like, write it down, write down the tests, write down what people said about your child and what letter. And even if it's like STAR testing from month to month to month, okay, that's fine. But what you want to do is keep track of that STAR testing from year to year to year. And is your child, you know, making any progress? You know, is your child moving forward from year to year? And what we always want is a year's worth of progress for a year's worth of time.
Right. Yeah. That's
always our goal. We might not always get it. Sometimes it takes kids a little bit longer to learn things, but we should be making some progress every year, and we shouldn't just be sitting still.
No.
Yeah. Can I ask a maybe uneducated question? But is this like kind of getting some of these foundational ideas of where your kid is at with like reading, writing, or math? That's really important in those like early years, right? Because it gets a little harder as they get into like middle school and high school where they're changing subjects all the time and like it's not just, math, reading, writing.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like I had a family call me last year. Their son was a junior in high school and reading at a first grade level.
Yeah.
Oof.
And we put some intervention in place. They did some outside tutoring. We did all of those things, and literally in the space of months, that individual gained 4, 5 grade levels now in reading in the space of months.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's amazing. Yeah,
So
I
a lot
mean, grab the data is harder in middle school and high school because they do change through like classes. I'm not saying that they shouldn't grab data. I'm just saying like it gets more complicated. But like you said, you should know if your kid is going into high school and only reads at a first grade level, like you should know that before then.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk a little bit about goals, friends, for those of you that are listening. So we're going to talk a little bit about goals and to talk a little bit about how goals are collaborative. And this sort of gets to Jen's point, because remember that when we write goals on an IEP, goals are the student's goals. It's not this teacher's goal, because guess what? Kids don't just read in reading class, and they don't just do math in math class. And they don't just write when they're with the OT, and they don't just talk when they're with the speech therapist. So the goals belong to the student. So goals should be really collaborative. And then next slide. They should also be task oriented. So they need to be about what the student is doing. All right. And we can have lots of collaborative goals in an IEP. Next slide. The other thing that we want to do is pay attention to the difference between the skills and the goals. All right. So what is the skill that we want the child to gain? And where does that skill apply naturally? We don't want to like force it into something. It's not that. And it should be intentional. Okay. So think about it. You have a child's goal for handwriting. Okay. Sometimes there are places in the country that they pull kids at certain time of day so we can do goal work.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with this is that it takes it out of context.
Yes.
As opposed to like if we want a child to work on writing their name, kids in kindergarten write their name on average of 5 to 10 times a day during a school day. Okay, so right there, we have 5 to 10 data points, daily data points, up to 50 data points in 1 week on whether or not they can write their name.
Yeah.
And so I always challenge the friends to start looking at where are those natural opportunities for data. And can we just go to the kids' mailbox and pull artifacts out of their mailbox and use those as data points? Okay.
Do you think so again, selfishly, all my questions are going to be in the lens of a ninth grader. Do you think that is the case as like throughout their school lifespan, that like you should be able to just go back and find the data within the stuff that they're doing every day in gen ed? Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Next slide, please. So why do we have goals? Every goal is one small task, ability, or measurement we're tracking to verify learning. And it's just one area of focus, okay? So this is where we say, we're going to know that Brendan is learning math when he can demonstrate the ability to complete XYZ number of division problems on his own, okay? That's how we know. Goals are not curriculum, okay? Goals are our way of ensuring or checking to make sure that the child is able to demonstrate learning. That's what it is, okay? That's what a goal is, right? So it's only intended as something the student understands and will be able to look back on and be proud of, okay? That's the point. I mean, think about your goals. I mean, I used to have a goal that I should be able to do Zumba. Okay. Because I had like friends that would take Zumba classes, and it was like, I need to be, I'm kind of more of an indoor cat. So, doing things like that is a little bit of a leap for me. But I always, I aspired to that. Well, guess what? I did not reach my goal, partly because I'm super clumsy and I looked like those people they make memes about when I tried to do Zumba. That was something that I could look at my data and be able to say, I need to rework this goal. So I went from Zumba class to yoga class. And next thing you know, I was very successful, much different, right? Based on the data, right? Next slide, please.
I love that I guess like comparison, because I think sometimes as a parent, and myself included, like sometimes I see the data from Stella and it's just like, it just feels like failure, 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 right? And it gives me anxiety. Like I said, there's a theme here. It gives me anxiety, and it makes me feel so stressed. But like in my own life, if I compared it using your analogy, right, of like Zumba, it's like, well, we all deal with those things all the time. And it's like, how do you just like pivot or, create the modifications or accommodations you need to be successful? And so, yeah, like that's one thing that I guess like I'm taking from this is like that we should not be so hard on the data, use it to our advantage.
Yeah, because that's the whole point, right? I mean, think about it. Like if you're looking at your bank account and you're like going, "Oh my gosh, what the heck happened to all my money?" But then you notice Amazon, 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 and you're like, "Oh, that's what happened to my money." You're going to take that data and hopefully you're going to change something, right?
Yeah.
Learn to be more frugal.
Yeah, maybe not so much stuff from Amazon. Who knows? But that's the exact same point at schools, and that's why one of the things I always encourage parents to ask for is quick little monthly meetings to take a look at the data. How are we doing? How are we accomplishing the goals? Are we headed in the right direction? Because the last thing you want to do is waste an entire school year and get there and find out your child started out the school year at a first grade level of reading, and at the end of the school year, they've only gained 2 months
right
of skills, where we could have maybe adjusted how we were teaching, maybe did it at a different time of the day, maybe we needed more interesting books, maybe the teacher didn't understand about phonics instruction.
Yeah.
I had a teacher that I was working with. I'll use this example. That she sat down and she said, "Here's the thing I'm really frustrated with is you told me I needed to use phonics with so and so, and so I've been doing phonics. He's a part of these lessons. We're doing the phonics lessons, and it's going nowhere. I did everything you said, and it's going nowhere." And I said, "Okay, well, bring me the book, your teacher's manual. Show me some of the lessons that you've been teaching. Let's sit down. Let's kind of puzzle this out. Let's figure this out." So we had this young man's assessment that showed what phonics skills he had. And the teacher brought in her lesson, which was probably at least 2 grade levels ahead of where the child was. So we had a teacher that was teaching advanced blends and digraphs, and I had a kiddo who didn't have some basic skills down.
Yeah.
Right.
So it made perfect sense. And I said, well, this is why he's not going anywhere, because he doesn't have the foundational skills to learn the stuff that you're teaching him now. We need to back up the bus.
Back up the bus.
Skirt.
Yeah, exactly, Brenda.
Skirt.
And so your slide, like where you're talking about these gaps, right? Like how then, once you identify that, how do you move forward?
So that's where people, you want to be really honest about it. I mean, yes, we're going to have a vision for kids, and yes, we're going to be really aspirational, but just like building a house, we have to build a foundation first, and then we have to build the frame, and then we can dress it all up.
Yeah.
But, we need to find out, if we know where we're going, where are they at right now? And that's where that data comes in.
Yeah.
And we can't keep pushing them along. We need to address the gaps. So that's why that last question on this slide says, what do we have to do to support the student's ability to fulfill the expectation? How do we get this child to that place?
Mm-hmm.
What's it going to take? Is it intervention? Is it accommodations? Is it scaffolding? What is it?
Yeah.
And we have that really honest conversation.
And how do you, I think probably the biggest challenge that like I face as a parent is wanting Stella to stay in gen ed classes.
Mm-hmm.
And that pace is a lot faster
Mm-hmm.
than usually like her skill level is at. So it's like we're constantly being mindful of that because it's there's a push and pull there.
Yep. Yeah. Next slide, please. So on this next slide, it talks about it shows the relationship that what happens is after we understand this, then we figure out how every player at the table can support the learning. I was just in Lake Havasu, Arizona, last Thursday and Friday, and I had the opportunity to work with this amazing team. And this team, we sat down and said, oh my gosh, we have a kiddo who's about 4.5 grade levels behind in reading. And this team started looking at this child's day to say, okay, here we can fit some extra reading instruction here. Here we can fit some extra reading instruction. Here's how we'll accommodate this. Here's how we'll accommodate that. And it was one of the most phenomenal meetings that I've sat in recently, because this team was all about the fact that this child had the potential to learn, and all we had to do was teach them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how does that, like in the mindset of goals and goal writing, is that another strategy that, obviously we want the goals to be data driven, right? You want the goals to be able to be, what was the word that you used? Like, I was going to say like, not something special that they have to be pulled out to.
Yeah, we don't have to do goal work. It's not the curriculum. It's just a skill, right?
Yeah. And then you want it to be collaborative in the sense of like everybody's working together towards this goal.
Absolutely. Joel, do you mind skipping down to slide 15 for me? All right, perfect. Now, when we start looking at, what skill is it? What is the thing that we want to build? Now, is that skill math skills or reading skills or executive functioning skills or whatever? It could be any number of people on that IEP team that are helping with that. Next slide. The next thing that we want to decide, though, is does that skill need to be a goal or is it just an adaptation? Sometimes, we don't need every single thing to be a goal. Not more goals isn't always better, but also too few goals isn't always good either. Sometimes as parents, you want something to be a goal because you need to hold people's feet to the fire and make sure that the work is getting done, right?
So what's an example of this, like, that you can think of?
So, oftentimes I get IEPs that come across my email and there will be goals in there for attention.
Oh.
They say, Jen will attend to task. And this, my favorite goal is this one. Favorite. Oh God, love them. It's Jen will attend for up to 10 minutes of a non-preferred task.
Right. And so that does not need to be a goal.
No, because seriously, do you guys attend 10 minutes to something you don't want to do?
No. Absolutely not.
Exactly. We don't do that. Like, it's just, that's, and especially when the child is like 6.
Right.
So you expect them to sit there for 10 minutes doing something that they don't want to do. And then they get upset because they have behaviors. Well, A equals B, if you want my opinion. So like goals for attention, that doesn't make any sense to me. Because here's what we know from the research. Dr. Ross Green has very famously said, kids do well if they can.
Yeah.
If a if a task is set in front of a child that they can do, if it's accommodated and if it's relevant and interesting, especially if I have Williams syndrome, because our kids are like the biggest joiners, they absolutely want to be involved in stuff, then they're going to do it.
Right.
And if they're not doing it, let's figure out why.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and one example I guess I could think of about this is like with Stella, that's one biggest challenge we probably run into is just having work accommodated for her ahead of time, but ahead of the lesson, so that when the lesson is happening, like she has a way to access it. You can definitely see that if a lesson is accommodated in a way that makes sense for her, she is like just 200 times more able to be present in it and like have things that she's taking away from it versus if it's what I say is like not accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Next slide, please. So if you look at some examples of really good goals, a student will demonstrate understanding of 2 to 3 concepts per unit of instruction across all curricular strands. That's a great goal because guess what? The general education teacher, it provides those universal accommodations as far as preferential seating, maybe alternate output. Maybe it doesn't have to be handwritten. Maybe they type it and email it. They provide multisensory instruction and maybe some teacher-directed notes. The support teacher or the special ed teacher helps the general ed teacher pick those 2 to 3 concepts and adapts any materials that might need to be adapted. The OT helps to make sure that the child can use their computer to access the work. The speech therapist is working on whatever that vocabulary is for that particular unit so that when they go to access it, they know what the words mean, right? And the PT ensures that child's desk and seating promote optimal function. So that could be, a really good goal that is supported collaboratively.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do we use for the data at the end of the day, after the end of that unit, when the teacher does a little assessment on those 2 to 3 concepts? Did they learn it or didn't they? There's our data point. Yes or no?
Yeah. I love this one too, because this is a great example of how a goal should look like if your kid is in gen ed and you're not doing those pullouts.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing of it is like, even if your child is not in gen ed, even if your child is getting content, in a resource room or another classroom, you can still use this goal, It's just going to be the special ed teacher that's providing those universal accommodations and things like that. Another great goal to have in an IEP, again, something about holding people's feet to the fire. Student will increase reading skills or sight word knowledge. This was a trick question because for a kid with Williams syndrome, we're not going to put the sight word knowledge part in there, okay? So student will increase reading skills by 1 grade level, all right? That is really important because if their Kaufman assessment says that they're reading at first grade 7 months, then what we really want in a year is that it's at second grade 7 months or as close to that as we can get.
Right.
Okay.
They're great examples. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Next slide, please. So we start with really good goals and notice that those goals were really simple and they didn't include any prompts. One of the things that sometimes happens when we include prompts and goals is the person doing the progress report says, oh, this goal was written that says, that they'll do this with 4 prompts or less. And that's all fine and dandy, but if I've really prompted them several times, so I don't know that they've met this.
Mm-hmm.
So we keep hanging on to the same goals over and over again, simply because of the prompts. Well, here's the thing about educators. Sometimes we can't shut up. Sometimes we can't be quiet. Sometimes we help a lot and we're super nice. And so what we need to do is be mindful of, are we providing this instruction and is this child able to demonstrate the skill set as an independent learner or an autonomous learner with the scaffolds and supports that they need? And are we hinging their progress on whether or not we can decrease the amount of prompting? And here's the other thing about prompting. The other thing about prompting is people don't actually keep track of it. It's very rare I've ever seen someone have a little tick sheet, a data sheet where they've kept track of their prompting.
Yeah. Can I ask a question about like the examples of the goals that you just gave us? One thing I tend to see, and I'd love to have your insight on, is those types of goals that are like, this person will demonstrate a 50% increase over last year in 2 of 3 attempts. Like, and I always am curious about, I mean, I get like the logic of why they're trying to do that, but like it's hard because like it depends on how you get Stella one day. Like if she's in a funk and that's one of your data point days, like you're not going to get what she knows, right? And so it's like really hit or miss on. I mean, I know that's part of the reason why they're like, oh, we have more data or 2 out of 3 whatevers, but it just doesn't. It makes it almost the goal complicated to me. Like
it makes it way too complicated.
Okay, so you're understanding what I'm saying. Great.
Absolutely, 1,000%. Can you please skip to slide 23? Yeah. So one of the things that I think is really important is, before the meeting, the parents should get a draft of the IEP 24 to 48 hours at least, at the very minimum, ahead of the meeting so that they can read it, because it's too hard to make decisions when you've just been given a bunch of data through a fire hose sitting in your meeting. Yeah. And then the other thing that I think is important is that, if you have goals as parents, give those goals. And there's two types of assessment. There's what we call formative assessment and summative assessment. Formative assessment is little sort of touch points that you do on a daily, a weekly, a monthly basis to check progress and make sure that we're making progress, and then adjust instruction so that we can continue to make forward progress. Mm-hmm. Summative assessment happens at or benchmarking. Sometimes you heard it referred to as benchmarking. Happens 2 to 3 times a year, usually at the beginning of a school year, mid-year, and at the end of the school year. And sometimes it's just the beginning and the end of the school year. But that's so that we can figure out, did we make any progress at all? Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that you can do with IEP goals, because an IEP is for a year, is use your benchmarking data as the information that you get. So what you can do is say, in your present level, student is currently reading at a 3.5 grade point level or grade level, according to beginning of the year benchmarking. By end of year, student will be reading at even a 4.3 grade level, according to end of year benchmarking. Mm-hmm. And so what happens with that is all of the I didn't have a good day, any of that stuff, that's not the stuff you're so worried about, yet are you using that formative assessment data on the way to inform your instruction? Yes, but the goal is that we get to this endpoint at the end of the year. Okay. And that's exactly what they do for every child. Yeah. Every school that's getting started typically spends the first 2 weeks of school that the kids walk in the door doing a whole bunch of assessments, because they're like, where are you at? We just brought you back from summer vacation, camp, Disney World, the beach, whatever you were doing. We need to figure out where you're at so we know where we're going.
Yeah, and it's interesting how you phrase that, because like I know for my other daughter, my typical learner daughter, it's like she's getting kind of a mid-year assessment and then an end-of-year assessment, right? And there's not the 2 of the 3 attempts or like. Yeah. So it's like we're making it complicated when really like it can almost follow a similar structure.
It does not have to be at all. Next slide, please. So this next slide talks about artifacts. Here's what happens. Kids do worksheets all the time. The other thing that happens is that, they have activities that they do in class activities, all of these things, and can become data points. Mm-hmm. And your goals should be so simple if you're writing them that literally, grandma could stop off at school that day and sit down and take a data point.
Yeah.
Grandma could sit down with your child during reading, shared reading on Grandparents' Day, and sit down. Your child reads to them. They flip that book over, and the grade level of the book is on there, and wham, it's a data point. She read this book today. It was a grade level 3.2. There's a data point. Go to the child's mailbox. You pull their papers out. You can see how many math problems they got right. They, whatever it is, and what grade level those things were on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those become really practical reporting tools. And then the other thing that you have that, Jen sort of talked about a few times in this podcast is you have transparency. So parents see what's going on at home, similarly to what's going on at school. It's not all disguised in odd percentages.
Right. Yes. I think I said confusion, but transparency is good. I'm like, I'm so confused. What's going on? I don't know.
Yeah. So,
well, I love this. Yeah. I love this. And I think this is like so much of what our community needs. And I think this is a lot of the questions that we've had from the community. Is this a good time to talk about questions, or do you have more that you want to touch on before we transition into?
I only have one thing that I wanted to share.
Okay.
Sure. Let's go.
One thing, if you could jump to slide 27 for me, please. Thank you. One of the key things to think about when we write goals is the words that we use. And we always want to use words when we're writing goals that allow for different types of support to be applied. So instead of something that says student will write a 3 to 5 sentence paragraph, we say student will produce a 3 to 5 sentence paragraph. Okay.
I'm taking a picture of this.
Because that way that student can produce that with magnetic letters on a computer, on an iPad, handwrite it. It makes no difference, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of saying the student will memorize their math facts, student will demonstrate understanding of the use of basic math facts to complete X number of math problems. Mm-hmm. Okay. Demonstrate understanding. Those words are really powerful because all we need to do, the student to do, is to do the work. And again, we boil it down to a yes or no question. Can they do it or can't they? Okay. So those things are really important. So yeah. What other questions did we have?
A question from this incredibly cool guy named Joel came in, and he's wondering about, we're talking about the personal goals and the report that parents write. Can that be in the form of a life trajectory, charting the life course, sort of visual thing, or how, do you have any opinions on the best way to present that parental report?
I have seen families write a letter. I have seen families that have created a really cool flyer, like in Canva. I've seen families do a slide deck. I've seen kids do a slide deck. As they hit middle school and high school age, they take it upon themselves to create their own vision statement. Thank you very much. And it becomes a slide deck. And because that's what they wanted to do. I very recently had one kid that made a video. So yeah,
what a good idea.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they just submitted a YouTube link. So okay, cool.
Yeah, that's brilliant stuff. What a great question from that guy. Also, okay, so other questions. Well, could we talk a little bit about behavioral elements in an IEP? When it comes to especially the transition. We had Ashley wrote in about transition to middle school. We're experiencing it a bit with Bennett as he goes into high school. How can behavioral things be effectively managed with the team, I guess? Let me put it generally like that.
So especially when you're looking at something like a transition, whether it's from elementary to middle school to high school, or, or sometimes schools have intermediate schools. And, a lot of the kids have anxiety and they're struggling with it. To me, that's not necessarily something that needs to be a goal, but it absolutely should be something that's listed in the present level as acknowledging that, I'm just going to use Bennett as an example. As Bennett prepares for high school, he has been demonstrating a lot of anxiety. In order to support him, the team is going to do the following things, and that becomes a supplementary aid and service. So those supplementary aids and supports, there's a whole page of it that do not have to be permanent. They can be something temporary that we put in for a certain time. So maybe those steps to support Bennett are, he gets an extra tour of the high school, maybe because it's so big and he might be scared of how to get from point A to point B. They initiate putting stickers on the wall that go from this classroom to the other classroom that are nothing more than dots. And you follow the purple path to get from math class to the lunchroom. Mm-hmm. And then you follow the green path to get from the lunchroom to science. And they're just dots on a wall. And trust me, there's going to be 25 other kids that start using those same dots.
Yeah.
Jen has been writing in here that she knows all the answers to stuff, so she's going to pop off now. She's mastered all of this.
Yeah.
I love
was
that.
Just sitting here like sweating, and I'm like, oh
my God, me too.
What's wrong with me? I should know this stuff, and I don't.
All right. Well, Jen, we will see you.
Thank you.
Bye, Jen. Good to see you.
You too.
And I just want to talk a little bit about anxiety because
No, I'm kidding.
Thanks, Brenda.
Because I started 8th grade in a new city in a brand new school with all new people. So that was talking about transitions and things like that. That was a big transition for me. So it was very anxiety inducing at the time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did they put some things in place to help you work through it? What happened with that?
It took a lot. There's a lot of fighting with the school. Not always the greatest, but
one of the things that I wish people would understand is, like a family that goes on, let's say you're going to go on a trip, even if it's just to go to grandma's house. Okay. So, you tend to plan that. You think about all the contingencies, what could go wrong, what you need to fix, what should you do ahead of time? What do you need to bring with you? You do all these things to have even this road trip for a 30-minute trip to grandma's house to go well, right? Does everybody have their shoes, whatever it is? And for some reason, and I can't always put my finger on why, when we're going to move kids in these big transitions from building to building or even grade to grade, we don't sit down and do the exact same thing and think about, do they have everything they need? Are they going to know what to do? How are we going to support them? And we don't think about all of those things. And for so many of the kids with Williams syndrome that I've had the opportunity to work with, an extra visit to the school to walk the halls makes a huge difference. The ability to look at your locker and then make a decision on whether or not they can actually handle that combination lock, or if we need to take that thing off and put a key in the lock or use some other kind of combination lock, they figure out where their stuff goes. They figure out where their lab chair might be. Just that. I mean, literally, it's like 45 minutes. Settles all the anxiety right down.
Yep. Combination locks are definitely not my friend. I have a big problem with them. True story. I was at the gym one time and I forgot the combo to my lock. So they literally had to come in with snippers to cut the lock off. And I was so embarrassed. So I was like, oh my God, never again.
Every single time every single time I came back from, a vacation break, in school, winter
Yeah.
break, even Thanksgiving break. That Monday, I would be staring at my lock, just trying to remember, what it was, because the number of things that kids have on their mind
Yeah.
is insane, and we're asking them to remember random digits and turning the
Left, right, like,
one.
And
yeah,
that is the reason why I only use the locks that you can put a key in. And it's
yeah.
simple
Well, and
nowadays.
that's the thing. It's like they make so many different ones now. I mean, you can, take that combination lock off. You can put a key in it, or
Mhm.
you can do something like what you did, Joel, and get the ones that, it's a word. They even have them now where you have a little key fob and you just wave it at the locker and it pops open. Like, like
Yep, those are pretty great too.
Yeah,
there's
they're
tons of
all.
things that you can do. So, like, and that's the thing. Like, forethought and deliberacy.
Mhm.
Think ahead, do it on purpose.
Yep.
Okay, so the last two questions that we have are sort of more a chance to reiterate a couple of the points that you have touched on today. One is from Lauren, who has a master's in education, has taught special ed for 10 years, but when going through the birth to three transition to public school early childhood with her daughter with Williams syndrome, shocked at how the district nurse treated my daughter, me as a mother slash advocate, and tried to work around the decisions made in a legal IEP meeting. So it might be worth the transitions within programming and emphasizing how important the parental role is. So people can be invited to come in to attend the IEP meeting, therapists, practitioners. I believe in one of your previous appearances on this, you were talking about, I'm not an advocate. I am what is the word that you use? You're, it's like, I'm not.
I don't do advocacy work. I absolutely am a teaching partner. That's how I always,
That's a,
yeah.
I'm not an advocate. I'm a partner.
Yep.
That's what you said in your.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
and if they come back with, that's a lot of work with me, that's a lot of work for me. I don't want to do that. That's just an unacceptable answer.
Yeah, that's sorry about your luck situation.
Yep.
The other thing that parents, I think, need to recognize too is that the thing that happens when you go to the IEP meeting and they're like, oh, we're going to let Mrs. Smith, the OT or the PT or the Gen or someone, we're just going to let them go first because they have to go to another meeting. You don't have to agree to that as a parent. You can say, no, I think it's really important for Mrs. Smith to be here for this entire meeting, and this is my meeting time, so you do not have to give them permission. Also, no one is allowed to not be at your meeting, especially if they're a service provider, unless they have talked to you ahead of time and you have given written permission. If you have not given written permission, they are obligated to be at that IEP meeting.
Is that something, so to prevent being a good Midwesterner, where I'm afraid of every buddy just being mad at me, is it something then maybe to bring up prior to the meeting saying,
Oh, yeah.
please make sure everybody will be able to attend this meeting in its entirety. If please make arrangements. Either we need to move the meeting earlier, or please make arrangements for somebody else to go get the people off the bus.
Yeah.
Please, so that way you're avoiding well, I have to leave early, so blah blah blah, and going, no, you're staying in this meeting, and so then you've started the meeting off with a very contentious atmosphere. But if you go to it ahead of time and say, please, everybody, plan on being there for the entirety of the meeting, even after you present on your part.
Well, and the other thing you can also do is, like when you send in your parental input, like let's say the PT is only on consult. Or you also know the OT mom, the OT that provides for your child from soccer practice, because you sit there on Tuesdays and you chat every week. So, at soccer practice. And so, you also can, when you send in your parental input, say, I just want to let you know that I've talked to, Mrs. Jones, the OT, multiple times. There's no need for her to attend the meeting. Also, if the PT would just give me a quick call, we can conquer that. They also don't have to attend the meeting. I mean, you can let people off the hook too. I had one family that they ran their meeting, their IEP meeting, like speed dating. It was the coolest thing. They sat down, the gen ed teacher and the special ed teacher were in the room with the family, and the PT people rolled in, then OT, then speech, just like that. And the specialist teachers for like 15 minutes for each specialty, and they shoot them back out the door.
And that was an effective way for them to do their IEP.
That was effective for them to do their IEP. And that's the thing. It's like, that's what I think. If I thematically have one thing to say to families, it's like IEP meetings don't have to be, they need to be what you need them to be so that you and your child's team can work together.
Mm-hmm.
They also, like, when they tell you, well, we only do IEPs on Tuesdays between 2 and 4. No, legally, they have to do an IEP meeting at a time that's convenient for you. And if they say, well, we only have 45 minutes for this meeting, say, okay, that's fine, but I anticipate that's not going to be enough time. So let's make sure that we set up 2 or 3 meeting times now.
Yeah. So it's more of finding, we as parents need to remind each other that that this is our meeting and that this is our kids' meeting. Okay, final one, and I feel like this is a good bookend to how you started talking today. And this is Jennifer wrote has a 5-year-old with a dual diagnosis of autism and Williams syndrome. Currently in ABA. I don't know what ABA is.
It is behavioral therapy.
Okay. They want long-term goals for him to enter school next year, and I don't even know where to start. I know the best thing for me is to have high expectations and goals, but I just don't know where to start. I just want him to be happy. I feel like school is going to be a negative in his life and not give him what he needs. I also know that it's important for him to read, write, and be around others who are atypical, and I'm going to assume typical as well. I just don't know where to start with goals. My son doesn't eat solids, talk, potty trained, or sit for long periods, much less learn the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. I know it sounds negative, but I'm just worried about putting him into a school system and have schooling be a negative more than a positive. I hear so much of that, but I also think it plays back into how you started talking today.
Mm-hmm. So you said he was 5? Yeah. So here's the thing, like, there are so many aspects of early literacy, like having him engage in shared reading, maybe understand concepts of print. Where's the front of the book, the back of the book, the pages, all of those aspects of what we call pro-student behaviors. Does he begin to learn to be able to attend to an academic task, even in its most simplest form? An ABA, or applied behavioral analysis, can help him learn those routines. And because what you'll do is you just start to learn those basic steps of what it means to be a student. And, and for him, that might take a little longer, and that's okay. That's absolutely okay. But we start somewhere. And there are absolutely classrooms that have lots of support and understand that pace of learning and the environments and how supportive they need to be, those exist. So should the mom have to be coming up with goals? No, that should come from the school. But if I had to say, at 5 years old and wanting to start looking at school, I'd be focusing on things that what we call pro-student behaviors. What are those very beginning skills, very early learning literacy skills, things like that.
Sounds to me, in the words of Leslie Knope, it's time to find your team.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Find your team. All right, Robin. Wow.
Thank you so much, Robin, for coming on again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I love our school year kickoff meetings, and I just want to say to parents, you have power, and your kids need you to embrace it.
Yep.
You can find Robin at, you can email her at rpegg@williams-syndrome.org. It takes you to I believe it takes you to a link where you can actually even just sign up on her calendar for a meeting. I remember.
Okay.
And of course, you can always reach out to the WSA. If you are listening to this podcast on the audio version, the slides, and I will also put in some examples of goal setting sheets and like life trajectory templates that you can use to help identify what like what you talked about. What is my child? How do we want our kid to look like at 25?
Yep.
So I'll put in some of those templates too, and all of that will be available on the Starry-Eyed podcast page on the WSA website, williams-syndrome.org. Robin Pegg, there it is. I should have had my soundboard up so I could the giant crowd applause.
That's awesome. All right, thank you guys, Brendan. Such a pleasure to see you. Everybody have a great night. Take care.
Okay,
Thank
you
you,
too.
Robin.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Starry-Eyed podcast, presented by the Williams Syndrome Association and sponsored by InnerSense Organic Beauty. The show is hosted by Jennifer Keaton and Brendan Lemieux and produced by me, Joel Listman. All music by Tommy Barbarella and Mariella Elm. Got a question for the show? Email us at podcast@williams-syndrome.org. Video version of the podcast available on the Williams Syndrome Association channel on YouTube and on the Starry-Eyed podcast page on Facebook. Audio version available wherever you get your podcast delights. So like and subscribe and help spread some Williams syndrome awareness.